Sherri Ann Jarvis, born on the 9th of March 1966, was an American unaliving victim from Forest Lake, Minnesota, whose body was discovered in Huntsville, Texas, on the 1st of November 1980. Her body was discovered within hours of her SA and unaliving and remained unidentified for 41 years before investigators announced that their identification via forensic genealogy in November 2021. Despite initial efforts to discover both her identity and that of her unaliver or unalivers, the investigation into her unaliving gradually became a cold case. Numerous efforts were made to determine her identity, including several forensic facial reconstructions of how she may have appeared in life. The investigation into her unaliving is ongoing. Prior to her identification, Jarvis was known as the Walker County Jane Doe, in reference to the county in which her body was discovered and where she was later buried in a donated casket. On the 1st of November 1980, the nude body of a girl estimated to be between the ages of 14 and 18 was discovered by a truck driver who had been driving past the Sam Houston National Forest. She was lying face down in an area of grass approximately 20 feet from the shoulder of Interstate Highway 45 and 2 miles north of Huntsville. This individual called the police at 9:20 a.m. to report his discovery. The victim had been deceased for approximately 6 hours, thus placing her time of passing around 3:20 a.m. A rectangular brown pendant containing a smoky blue or brown glass-coloured stone on a thin gold chain necklace was found around her neck. Her ears were pierced, but no earrings were found in her ears nor at the crime scene. High-heeled leather sandals with brown straps, which investigators would subsequently discover the girl had been carrying while alive, were also recovered from the scene. The remainder of her clothing was missing. She was approximately 5'6" in height, weighed between 105 and 120 pounds, and was described by the Harris County Medical Examiner as being a well-nourished individual. Her eyes were hazel and her hair was approximately 10 inches in length and light brown in colour, with what has been described as a possible reddish tint, although her hair bore no evidence of having received a colour treatment. Her fingernails were bare and her toenails had been painted pink. A distinctive feature upon her body was a vertical scar measuring 1.5 inches at the edge of her right eyebrow. Due to the general condition of her body, including her overall health, nutrition, and excellent dental care she had received in life, she was believed to have come from a middle-class household. Her cause of passing was certified by the coroner to be asphyxia due to a ligature strangulation, possibly infected via a pantyhose, fragments of which, along with her underwear, were found. The pantyhose and underwear had likely been placed in an attempt to prevent her body from bleeding as she was transported to the site of her discovery. She had been essayed prior to her passing with a large blunt instrument. It is not known if she'd been conventionally aired, as no biological evidence attesting to this form of assay was discovered either at the crime scene or in the coroner's subsequent examination of her body. She had also been severely beaten prior to her passing, as many bruises were evident across her body, with her lips and right eyelid in particular being extensively swollen. In addition, her right shoulder bore a deep and visible bite mark. This image of a map shows the likely movements of Jarvis prior to her unaliving and the location of her body. The black dotted line indicates a likely route taken based on an eyewitness account. The red dotted line shows the direction to Ellis Prison Farm. Following exhaustive witness appeals and extensive media accounts regarding this unaliving, numerous individuals, all of whom are now deceased, informed investigators that they had seen a teenage girl matching her description within 24 hours prior to her unaliving. These individuals include the manager of a South End Gulf station and 2 employees at the Hitch and Post truck stop, all of whom described the girl as wearing blue jeans, a dirty yellow pullover, and a white knit sweater with noticeably large pockets which extended past her waist. This girl has been carrying red leather-strapped high-heel sandals. This 3/4 reconstruction of her illustrates the necklace found upon her body and the knit sweater eyewitnesses reported she had worn. According to the first witness, the girl, appearing somewhat dishevelled, had arrived at the South End Gulf station at approximately 6:30 p.m. on the 31st of October. At this location, she had exited a blue 1973 or 1974 model Chevrolet Caprice with a light-coloured top, which had been driven by a white male. The witness stated that the girl had asked for directions to the Texas Department of Corrections Ellis Prison Farm. After receiving directions, the girl had left the Gulf station on foot and was later seen walking north on Sam Houston Avenue. This same girl was later seen at the Hitch and Post truck stop along Interstate 45, where she again requested directions to the Texas Department of Corrections Ellis Prison Farm, claiming a friend was waiting for her at this location. In response, a waitress drew a map providing directions to the prison farm, which she then handed to the girl. The waitress informed investigators that she suspected the girl was a runaway, and that in their brief conversation, the girl had informed her that she was either from Rockport or Aransas Pass, Texas. The girl also claimed to the waitress that she was 19 years old. When the waitress had expressed doubts to her claimed age and further asked if her parents knew her whereabouts, the girl reportedly replied, On the 16th of January 1981, the then unidentified girl was buried in the Adikes addition at Oakwood Cemetery. Her burial followed an open casket funeral, and the cemetery in which she was interred is located within the city where her body was found. She was buried beneath a tombstone donated by Morris Memorials. The inscription upon the tombstone read, A new tombstone bearing a name, nickname, photograph, and the inscription has since been erected. Her remains were exhumed in 1999 in order to conduct a further forensic examination of her remains, including the obtaining of a DNA sample from her body. This second forensic examination of her body revised the likely age of her to be likely between the 14 and 18 years old, with investigators stating that they believed her most likely age was 14 and a half and 16 and a half years old. In November 2015, the case was officially reopened by Walker County Sheriff's Office. DNA testing was also conducted upon the high-heeled leather sandals found at the crime scene. The results of this testing remain undisclosed. Local police departments also actively monitored other missing persons reports for any potential matches to the victim. Investigators have also reached out to the public via various online websites, news, media, and television networks in hopes of generating further leads of inquiry, all of which to date have been unsuccessful in identifying her unaliver or unalivers. This image is an additional forensic facial reconstruction of her created by the NCMEC. Several forensic facial reconstructions have been created to illustrate estimations of how she would have looked in life. In 1990, forensic and portrait analyst Karen T. Taylor created a postmortem drawing of the Walker County Jane Doe, later Sherri Jarvis, in which she incorporated an estimation to the appearance of the necklace that she had been wearing. An investigator at the Walker County Sheriff's Office also created a facial rendering of her. Taylor has included this case in a book, Forensic Art and Illustration, in which she confessed to having experienced difficulties in creating her sketch, as the only frontal photograph made available to her at the time was of one taken after Jarvis had received extensive reconstructive cosmetic treatment at the Huntsville Funeral Home in order for her facial features to be sufficient to be viewed in an open casket funeral. Taylor further explained that a scale photograph of the girl's necklace was not made available to her, and that she was forced to guess the size of the item of the jewellery for the facial reconstruction she produced. Within the decade prior to Walker County Jane Doe's identification, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children constructed and released 2 facial reconstructions of how she may have looked in life. The first facial reconstruction was released in 2012 and the second shortly after the 35th anniversary of her unaliving. All facial reconstructions were created in the aid of studying the mortuary photographs taken of Jarvis. This image is an array of 4 identified young females whose faces have been forensically reconstructed, all of whom have since been identified. Sherri Jarvis is depicted third from the left. In 2020, the Walker County Sheriff's Office partnered with Autham Incorporated to attempt to identify Walker County Jane Doe via genetic genealogy. Initial attempts to extract usable genetic materials from her remains were unsuccessful, but testing on her preserved tissue samples yielded usable DNA, which was used to generate a genetic profile of her and construct a family tree. Through this family tree, living relatives of hers were identified and located. DNA swabs from these individuals were used to confirm her identity in 2021. On the 9th of November 2021, the Walker County Sheriff's Office publicly announced that the identity of Walker County Jane Doe as 14-year-old Sherri Jarvis, who had run away from Stillwater, Minnesota in 1980. Her identification had previously been announced in late September 2021 by forensic artist Kyle Koppelman, who had produced several forensic reconstructions of her and who announced that her identity was temporarily being withheld to give her family sufficient time to grieve privately. Jarvis was known as Tatty to her friends. She had been removed from her home and placed under the state's custody at the age of 13 due to her habitual truancy and had run away shortly after her 14th birthday. Her final contact with her family was in the form of a letter penned to her mother from Denver in August 1980. In this letter, Jarvis indicated that she was frustrated at being placed in state custody but intended to eventually return home. At this formal announcement, a statement from her family was read, expressing gratitude for of all who had worked to identify Jarvis and to their questions as to her whereabouts, adding that they took comfort from the fact that she'd been identified. The statement also thanked those who had visited her grave while she remained unidentified and emphasised the family's wish for her unaliver or unalivers to be brought to justice. The investigation into her unaliving is ongoing, and investigators have stated discovering her identity has given them of inquiry that they are actively pursuing. Some individuals have speculated Jarvis may have been assaulted and unalived by a female assailant as opposed to a male. This hypothesis was initially suggested by journalist Michael Hargreaves, who based his assumption upon the fact that no S was found upon or within Jarvis's body, or the actual crime scene, and that the only essays conclusively proven to have been committed upon the girl were performed by aggressively forcing an object or objects into her bodily orifices. Hargreaves elaborated his hypothesis by stating that men who commit crimes of sexual nature are typically known to bite their victims upon sensitive areas of the body, as opposed to the shoulder, as had occurred in this case. The act of male perpetrators of unalivings committed with sexual motivation, occasionally collecting souvenirs from their victim, was also noted to be inconsistent with this case, as the necklace Jarvis had worn was still present on her body. However, the fact that it is unknown if Jarvis had worn any other items of jewellery at the time of her unaliving, and that her ears were pierced yet her earlobes had no earrings, may negate the portion of Hargreaves' hypothesis. Furthermore, most of the girl's clothing was missing from the crime scene. A possibility exists that Jarvis may have been unalived by the same perpetrator as another formerly unidentified unaliving victim, Deborah Johnson, known as Orange Socks, who was unalived almost exactly a year prior to Jarvis and whose body was found in Georgetown, Texas. Serial unaliver Henry Lee Lucas has also been named as a possible suspect in this case, although the bite mark found upon Jarvis's shoulder was inconsistent with Lucas's dentistry. No prime suspects have been named in the unaliving, although police have considered the possibility that the victim was unalived by a serial unaliver. In 2017, a theory arose that Jarvis had been unalived by the same perpetrator known to have unalived 3 other females in 1980 whose bodies were dumped along Interstate 45. All were strangled, some were essayed in a similar manner. All 4 victims were described by investigators as being one of the women, aged between 20 and 30, was found on the 15th of October 1980 in Houston. She was a black female with possible Asian heritage and had passed away approximately 3 months prior to the discovery of her body. A second female was also black. She was estimated to be between 16 and 26 years old. Her body was discovered beneath a bridge in Houston in December 1980. The information compiled by the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System states the following individuals were each positively excluded as being Walker County Jane Doe prior to her 2021 identification. Joyce Brewer, born on the 24th of January 1955, went missing on the 6th of September 1970 in Grand Prairie, Texas, aged 25. She is believed to have run away from her home with a boyfriend following an argument with her parents. Mary Chulsa, born on the 15th of November 1957, went missing on the 23rd of December 1974 in Fort Worth, Texas, aged 22. She was apparently abducted by 2 friends while Christmas shopping. Within days of her disappearance, a letter was mailed to her husband claiming she and her companions were travelling to Houston. The letter was written by a right-handed person, whereas she was left-handed. Wendy Eaton, born on the 26th of May 1959, went missing on the 17th of May 1975 in Media, Pennsylvania, while walking to purchase a gift for her brother, aged 21. Her case remains unsolved. Maria Andras, born on the 10th of August 1961, went missing on the 12th of February 1976 in Norwalk, Connecticut, aged 19. She had run away from her home in 1976. She had taken money and personal possessions with her. She is known to have threatened to run away from her home weeks prior to her disappearance, although on this occasion her father had dissuaded her from doing so. Cindy King, born on the 27th of July 1961, went missing on the 19th of July 1977 in Grants Pass, Oregon, aged 19. She had worn a retainer when she disappeared and had a notable scar near one of her temples, like the Walker County Jane Doe. Tina Kemp, born on the 20th of October 1964, went missing on the 3rd of February 1979 in Felton, Delaware, aged 16. Last seen leaving her home after helping to hang the family laundry. Kemp has never been heard from since and is believed to have been unalived. Kimberly Ray Doss, born on the 11th of September 1962, went missing on the 29th of May 1979 in Jacksonville, Florida, while visiting a relative, age 18. Speculation remains that she may have been abducted by a motorcycle gang, although no direct evidence exists to support this hypothesis. Doss had markedly similar physical characteristics to the Walker County Jane Doe. Marcia Estelle Remick, born on the 7th of May 1962, went missing on the 9th of June 1979 in Virginia Beach, Virginia, on her way to visit a friend on the oceanfront, then aged 18. Rumours later circulated that she was alive in Florida, although this has never been sustained and foul play is suspected. Angela Meeker, born on the 9th of July 1965, went missing on the 7th of July 1979 in Tacoma, Washington, 2 days before her 14th birthday, and was last seen at a party aged 15. Her physical appearance is markedly similar to the Walker County Jane Doe. Karen Zandrowski, born on the 2nd of September 1963, went missing on the 23rd of October 1979 in Bordertown Township, New Jersey, from a now-defunct bowling alley, aged 17. Her disappearance remains unsolved, although investigators strongly suspect foul play in the case, believing the most likely location of her body to be a sludge pit located in Hamilton. Deborah McCall, born on the 30th of March 1963, went missing on the 5th of November 1979, and she was last seen departing from her school in Downers Grove, Illinois, aged 17. She had markedly similar physical characteristics to Walker County Jane Doe. Foul play is suspected to be the reason behind her disappearance. Christy Lynn Booth was a 19-year-old waitress last seen at a nightclub, born on the 26th of December 1960 and went missing on the 2nd of February 1980 in Midland, Texas, aged 19. Investigators don't believe she left the nightclub willingly. Her vehicle was later abandoned on South Highway 349. Rachel Garden was born on the 30th of December 1964, went missing on the 22nd of March 1980 in Newton, New Hampshire, aged 15. She was likely abducted while walking from a store towards the home of a friend with whom she was intended to spend the night. She was last seen talking to 3 male acquaintances of hers, one of whom was later served a sentence for assault and who had been seated in a dark-coloured vehicle. Lauren Rann, born on the 3rd of April 1966, went missing on the 26th of April 1980 in Manchester, New Hampshire, aged 14. She is believed to have been abducted either from her home or close proximity to her address on the evening of her disappearance. She didn't take a purse, shoes, or any additional clothing, likely indicating that she'd been abducted from her home via force or guile. Roxanne Eastland, born in 1956 and went missing on the 28th of June 1980 in Anchorage, Alaska, aged 24. A female worker and erotic dancer who disappeared after leaving her apartment to meet with an unidentified male client on Northern Lights Boulevard. She is believed to have been unalived by serial unaliver Robert Hansen. You can hear more about her in my other video on my channel about Robert Hansen. Cara Corley, born on the 31st of December 1965, went missing on the 12th of August 1980 in Birmingham, Alabama, aged 14, and is believed to have been abducted from her home. Her mother discovered the family's front door ajar and evident signs of a struggle within her kitchen. She was declared legally dead several years after her disappearance.